partnership. Paulina is unfortunately not here today due to ill health. But without any further ado, I'm going to ask Brian to tell us about their journey. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Anita. You guys mind if I stand here? I'm not I'm not in the sun. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to everybody. I'd particularly like to welcome my three very special guests that have joined us today. And they're sitting there. It's my wife Sue, my daughter Tammy, and a lady Belinda Watts, who I will be referring to in a few minutes. I would also like to welcome, and I believe there are some business partners here who are joining us today in terms of listening to what the Partners for Possibility offers, as well as I think some also very special guests from the Gauteng Education Department, and I think that it's commendable to have them here today because after all they are the people who are so important in our lives in terms of the jobs that they have, the functions that they have, in terms of a very, very difficult situation that we find ourselves with in South Africa in terms of education. And everyone here knows the importance of education and the challenges that exist regarding education, particularly with our kids. My journey started a little bit differently to probably everyone else's in that I retired about 1.5 years ago, and some of the older generation here might remember this one day, that when you retire and you don't really know what you want to do, it becomes quite an anxious time for you. And I went through a very anxious period, and thanks to my family and the support, they recommended that I should see a life coach. And it's something that everybody needs to remember, and it doesn't necessarily follow that you need to see a life coach when you're retiring. You see a life coach when you're going through changes in your life. And it was recommended to me that I see a gentleman called Ray Scher, who's very well known to the Partners for I can see the ladies nodding their heads there. They all know Ray. Ray is an 82-year-old gentleman. And when I saw him for the first time, I said, no, how can an 82-year-old guy tell me in my life what I should be doing? But the most important thing that came out of those sessions that we have was introducing me to PFP. And I went to my first session and I was absolutely bowled over. It was a presentation given by Robin Whittaker. And it really changed my life, and as a result of that, I'm standing here today. So that's how I began my PFP journey. My partner, Paulina Makaleng, is not here today, but I want to tell you a little bit about the school that I joined and partnered with her. It's called the Ekurhuleni Primary School, and it's based in the south of Germiston. Now, I was very fortunate that prior to joining PFP, and that's why Belinda Watts is here, because she does a lot of work in the school environment, particularly with underprivileged and under-resourced schools, to the extent that through the foundation that she represents, which was started by her daughter Kirsty Watts, they built a classroom out of plastic bottles at one of the Soweto schools in Protea Glen. And she's here, and you can ask her about it afterwards, because it's a fascinating story, and I was taken there, and I saw this, and it was my first exposure. And this is a really important point that I want to make. It's my first exposure to the underprivileged, under-resourced schools in South Africa. I've never been. You know, we live in a corporate world, we work in a corporate world, and we don't know. Our children go to medium-sized or private schools or whatever, and we're not exposed to it. And I saw it, and I couldn't actually believe what I'd seen, but the work that they had done was magnificent. Here, they built a classroom, unfortunately, based on the the way the GED works is you're allocated educators based on the number of learners. So here was this classroom, subsequently been filled, but here was this classroom standing, and they couldn't get a teacher to fill the classroom because of the formula. But but it was good news because the educator was appointed after that. So the Ekurhuleni Primary School consists of 1,600 learners, 40 classrooms, average of 40 kids per classroom, 38 teachers with some support. It's in the middle of an informal settlement in south of Germiston. The first time I went there, because Paulina couldn't describe, she doesn't know. She said, go Google. All right, so I go Google, and Google, as usual, sends me, I'm terrified because where I end up. Unfortunately, I see an Ekurhuleni traffic officer, and I say, officer, please help me, take me to the Ekurhuleni Primary School. He says, follow me. And we get to this narrow road, and there are literally shacks on each side, and in front of me is a barricade of these big blue mobile toilets. And behind the mobile toilets, and it's stacked, the road is closed, behind the mobile toilets, the guys are protesting. It's a service delivery protest. And I'm now right in the middle of this. It's my first experience going into the Ekurhuleni Primary School. And the cop says to me, listen, he says, I've got a recommendation to make. He says, go home. And I said, I can't go home because Paulina's waiting for me. So I phoned Paulina, and nearby there is Interwaste, and she comes to fetch me, and I go to the school. So that's how my journey started. I just want to at this stage say that my journey was a little bit different to what you've heard up until now to a certain extent, in that a little bit of history in terms of Paulina and the school. The previous principal had been promoted, and Paulina had been selected by the GED to become the principal of the school. There was, unfortunately, because of the urgency of the situation and the vacancy that existed, there was no time for interviewing, etc., etc. And most of you who are in the education world will understand that the school governing board plays a very important role in terms of selecting that principal. But there was no time, so Paulina was literally parachuted into the school. And it was quite an unfortunate situation. I don't want to turn it into a negative situation, but this resulted in Paulina facing quite a few challenges because one of the deputies had been favored by the SGB in terms of who should have taken over the school. And this has unfortunately resulted in quite a bit of friction and anxiety for Paulina. And one of the reasons why she's not here today is because she's operating under quite a lot of stress and anxiety, and she's actually been booked off sick. So during the period of my journey, I unfortunately didn't have much exposure to her, but besides that, the two of us formed, in the limited time that we had available, the two of us formed a wonderful partnership. I want to refer to three very important seminars or conferences that we attended as part of the partnership. The first one was Time to Think, and having worked in the corporate world all my life, I was actually very sorry that and I refer here to Masejo, and I told her earlier on how lucky she is as a younger member of our group here to be exposed to those things which unfortunately I was never exposed to in my corporate life. And it's such an important thing from a business partner's point of view as well as principals, because Time to Think teaches you one very, very important principle, and that's to learn to listen. And when you're sitting and you're listening to this, and you think of yourself, because you're retired now, you're out of your working environment, and you say to yourself, within my family group, do I listen? And the answer is no. Because, you know, wives talk a lot, and so I know, that's all I'll say. But it teaches you to listen, and that time to think, and you interact with your principal, and the process is that you sit closely to her, and each of you talks for 3 or 4 minutes uninterrupted. And have I got 1 minute left? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So they went on for longer than I. So guys, I'm sorry. I'm just very passionate about this.
Yes, we know.
So it teaches you to listen, etc. The flawless consulting teaches you how to negotiate, because the most important thing, as far as the business partner is concerned, is that you are not a mentor. You don't come from being the smart guy in the business world and you're not teaching your principal what to do, because you're on an equal level, because she knows an enormous amount more about the education world than you do. You know about business, you know about budgeting, and you know about prioritizing things, but she can tell you what her challenges exist in this. And that's what the flawless consulting does. And the last thing that I want to talk about is another wonderful session called community building. Because the school's success, bearing in mind that school with its 1,600 pupils, the school fees are 25 Rand a month. I think only 10% of the parents are able to contribute. It's a poor school, they have nothing. So this community building is such an important part of the process that you go through, because it tells your principal how to involve the community, how to get your school governing board on board, etc. Paulina got a lot of strength from PFP, and this is very important as well. She had serious challenges in her life based on what I've said to you. The PFP, this partnership, the 14 of us, gave her such strength, such encouragement, such motivation. So whilst we didn't have much time to spend, and we didn't have much time to get the corporate world involved in terms of sponsoring, etc., etc., she's a better person. She told me, because we discussed this. She said to me, I'm a better person. I got support from you, I got support from the group, I got support from Anita. So there's a challenge. We pray that by the end of the month she'll be back at school. And then just lastly, I want to say, I'm here forever, like Masejo said, and Judith. I haven't started yet with this partnership. And as long as PFP will have me, as long as the school will have me, I will be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brian. Something that I can say about Brian is that Brian never gave up. He never gave up on Paulina. Paulina went through a torrid time. She was, I think, in the total time that you've been in your partnership, she was probably booked off for more than half of that, right? Okay, for more than half of that, because of the stress-related conditions from what happened at the school. We don't want to go into that negative space about everything that she's experienced. But something that Paulina said to me was that if it wasn't for PFP, I don't know if I would have made this. I probably would have ended up in a mental institution because of the stress. And throughout the time that Paulina was booked off, Brian would go out of his way. He would message her on a weekly basis. He would call her and find out how she was. We would go to wherever close to where she is, and we would meet, the three of us, and just talk through things with her. And I honestly believe that Partners for Possibility helped Paulina in the time that she really needed it. And just as far as Brian is concerned, something else I'd like to add about Brian is that in the times that she was at the school, he was there like a racehorse out of the what do you call those things? The stalls, out of the stalls. He was there. There was one of the learners that made it to nationals, athletics. Brian was there. His first question was, can he go? And she said no, because he doesn't have the money. And Brian organized it. And there were just so many more things that they did at the school. So yeah, this is the kind of partner I think that any principal would want as well. Great stuff. So thank you very much.